SketchCraft show, and that's me. Hey everybody, let me lower my chair just a little bit so my head is in frame. What's up, bots? How y'all doing? Welcome to the Gameinformer cover podcast. Right, so this is where I'm going to go over how I just made the issue cover to Gameinformer issue 290. Does that make sense? I'm reading this off script, folks, but we're doing it live. Joining me to talk a little bit about this is Lead Heavy James. Brandon, say hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, how you guys doing? Man, my eyebrows are out of control. I got to get my trim this week. It's driving me nuts.
Oh, so fancy eyebrow trimming.
Yeah, well, I got Bert eyebrows, man. So we're not here to talk about that. What you're looking at here is my ArtStation page, folks. This is my ArtStation. If you go to just basic regular old sketchcraft.com, you can see all my art, including the Gameinformer cover. But if you click on this little button here, the little aperture button, it'll take you right to the ArtStation. So if you're on ArtStation and you'd like to follow or friend or whatever, you can do that. But we're going to go here to the Gameinformer cover. Now, I've already set up a basic. We're going to walk through this walkthrough, right? It's a little step by step. And I'm going to jump to the video so we can kind of cover some of that real-time goodness. Now, you should know that only thing I was able to record in video was the coloring of this cover, and apparently only half of the cover, so the first front cover, because the other half, that file won't open. There's 7-8 gigs of it on my hard drive, just won't open. I've gone through I've done like 4 or 5 different video repair things. I don't know what happened. Just seems, Brandon, that sometimes when you really want something to work, it doesn't, right?
Exactly.
But I got a lot of the other stuff recorded. Now, I'll give you a little bit of preface about this this cover. The editor-in-chief of Gameinformer, Andy McNamara, is a great fucking dude. And I say he's a great dude because he really is. He really is, folks. He did the thing that I've been hoping would happen in my career that has not happened since yet. And it did. It finally happened. He hit me up on Twitter and said, hey, would you like to draw a cover? That's never happened, right? Like in the 13 years I've been doing this shit, I've been just like, if I just keep putting stuff out there, like fishing, right? If I just keep casting the bait, I can reel in the big fish. And he's like, would you be interested in doing a cover? I'm like, would I? And he's like, well, here's the thing, right? We need it like in a week or two, tops. Like I had a week and a half.
Right.
Maybe might have been closer to 2 weeks, but it really was closer to a week and a half because I know I did it in like 9 days. So, and they had a list of games for the top 100 games of all RPGs of all time. They had a list, and I had to go get all my reference for that stuff. Now, so you guys know, that's a lot of reference. So I use a program called PureRef, PureRef.com. I'm not jumping there now, but PureRef. It's a program you can buy, dump in your reference, save them individually. Saved my life. And then I knew I had to do a few things. Thanks, Dave. So here's the thing. I started doing gaming magazine covers back in 2008 with Play Magazine when I first started working there. And throughout my career, like I've tried, ever since I was at Play, I've been trying to work in things like controllers and games. And sometimes I'd get one through and sometimes I'd get nixed. I did this little Ninja Gaiden piece I have where it's based off Ninja Gaiden. And it had the chick from Ninja Gaiden 2 or whatever, the 360 version, the PS3 version, riding a giant PS3 controller. And that was the first time I was able to work in oversized controllers. Now, I've always just liked giant versions of normal things. Since I was a kid, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, I was like, can't wait. Right. I go to like Chuck E. Cheese, I go to like Toontown. I like giant versions of things. And I've always liked the giant Game Boy. When someone made a giant Game Boy table, I was like, I wish I could own that.
Right.
So this was another chance, after Play, I did Game Fan, and then I've been making Game Cave, doing my own thing, and do my own prints. Now I got a chance to go back and take everything I've learned and put it into one cover in 9 days. First thing I do, folks, when I got to draw a wall of characters, let me give you some advice. We got to draw a wall of characters. The thing that I found you don't want to do is create a wall of characters. What generally happens is you start laying in a character, like, you know, you can lay in a character here, and then another character here, and another character here, and you keep layering characters back, kind of like a class photo, right? Until it's all filled up with characters. And that's one way to do it. The problem I have with that for me is it lacks an atmosphere. It lacks this feeling, this mood. It just becomes a wall of characters. You end up just drawing faces. So then what a lot of people do is they go and get a bunch of pre-existing versions of things and redraw that. Kind of like the movie poster technique where Struzan or somebody has to work from like PR photos of all the Star Wars guys, right? And you got Carrie Fisher, you got Harrison Ford, and then they have to take those pre-approved photos and compose them in a way that will get approved. They tend to do that, except when you're drawing something like this, I think it should be your versions of those characters. Within, you know, they should be recognizable, but they should be your artistic interpretation. So drawing from a bunch of preset drawings to me is just like, it's not going to work for Rob.
Right.
So now you're in the difficult territory. You got to, one, be able to draw all your own versions of characters. Two, you got to get lots of stuff in there. Three, it still has to be atmospheric and pretty. And four, it has to get done on time. So that's the challenge. That is the challenge that I find myself in. And if you've been following any of the recent prints, that's what I've been doing time and time again. Like if you see here with the Final Fantasy VII piece, see how I worked this background in, utilizing a green tone, right? And then fitting these characters and stuff. So there's lots of characters, but there's also an atmosphere. This was a little bit more difficult than that because this features a bunch of characters that are not from the same game.
Right. So there's no cohesion. There's no similar styles to it either. So
other than what you can bring to the table.
Right.
You got different looks, you know. And you can draw like a super realistic character next to a cartoony character, but I would prefer to find a happy medium. And then there's also the element of where am I going to fuck up? You know, I always figured at some point I'll do something that's going to displease somebody. So, I mean, when I first worked at Play, Dave Halverson was editor-in-chief, and Dave was a very hands-on guy in terms of when I would draw something. I always say Sanford Green did this Sonic cover for him once.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to Sanford Green's DeviantArt page and type in Sonic, you'll see him mention this is the Sonic thing and there's the Sonic pinup. And the guy who paid, he didn't call Dave out, but he was saying basically the guy was a fucking nightmare to work with. I love Dave. Dave is really, I really do. I say I got a lot of love for Dave. But he definitely taught me how to like work within the realm. And when I'm kind of stepping outside the typical version of a character and into my own thing, I know when I'm doing that. You know, like case in here, it's not quite the way Gwendolyn looks in Odin Sphere. And I knew with Alloy from Horizon Zero Dawn, I was going to get some kickback on the fact that she's not super pretty, but we'll get down to that situation because that's a hit or miss. But everything else would have met Dave's seal of approval. Maybe he would have wanted to make Cloud a little less serious, but I already did a serious Cloud on my Final Fantasy VII piece, so I wanted to make this one a little bit more fun. Definitely chunkied the fuck out of the sword. Nice chunky sword. And then another way to work in a bunch of characters is to make them plushies and to work in the actual games. So the first step here is this is actually what I started out with, was a tonal piece. It's just a feeling. I wanted this idea of a sunset, like the dawn. If it's 100 RPGs, I wanted the dawn of something or other. And this was actually a lighting scheme I kind of borrowed from Horizon Zero Dawn. You'll see this kind of pinkish sky with orange, that kind of coloration with the bloom lighting. I thought that would be great to have that kind of going there and then move into this underglow of like Final Fantasy VII materia kind of coloration. And all this stuff in between is just me kind of blocking out where characters would go. No specific characters. You know, I know a kind of controller here. This is just whipping stuff around, and I'll have a character in the foreground and it'll be lit from this angle, and then I'm going to have some lens flares, and I think they'll put something back here, and I'm just blobbing shit in. And this just gets me past, one, a blank page, and two, it gets me set like I can feel like there's a mood here, which for myself is important, more than just drawing details. It's trying to set a mood. Now you're wondering, Rob, this is not the same as this. Well, we'll get to that. So normally I send 2 or 3 ideas. Because of the lack of time, I thought if I could just send one idea, I would send this. So this is my thing I sent off for approval in terms of, hey, I'm kind of moving in this color direction. Trust me on this. I always have to just tell new clients, just trust me. And I sent a few previous pieces, like here's how I kind of work. This coloration was a backup I had in my head. I should have probably sent both because they kind of wanted to go more in this direction. And I'll explain why later. After that's approved, I start blocking in each character in this black silhouette here. First I make a little silhouette, and then I lock it and fill it in with the character color details. Rather than sketching out these things individually, like all cloud stuff, I just block it in single color. And then if I need to show an edge, I'll just sketch in that edge using the hard round brush. And you can see here I sketched in little tiny figurines. So I kind of got an idea of how sizing I wanted on that. And I kind of got their... This is tedious. I have to go and sample each character, get their colors, and then also make sure that those colors are congruent across the piece. You want the colors that you use for the bases to be a lot of the same ones. Otherwise, you're going to end up with the pinata pictures, like the pinata zone, where you got like this fruity pebble thing. So a lot of if I have a dark blue, it's all the same blue. If I have a metal, I have 2 or 3 kinds of metal colors of the same base color throughout the piece. That just brings the whole piece together from a unity standpoint. And this is slow and tedious, folks. This is not, so this is where we sort of end up on the spectrum. And you're going to see, this is me just blobbing in stuff. Hand is not really a hand. It's a blob of paint, you know? And I'm working forward, back to the background, and then adding little things on top. Like I kind of figured these little figurines will come this way. I don't know which ones they are yet. I just know they will be. Down here, and I wanted this cable going from one controller throughout the piece all the way this way, and I have a few other cables. So I then block in all these things here. Also, you'll notice they gave me a basic logo and where the subscription thing goes over. So whoever gets a subscription, the important piece of the art won't be cut the fuck off, right? It's kind of the idea, and that's typical. Like I tend to, even with everything I do, comic covers, I always try to work on the actual cover layout so I know what I'm working on. You have any questions about this stuff, Brandon? Like this sort of thing?
Not yet. I mean, I think it's cool to see, because most people don't do it like this. They don't block in shapes and colors to get the idea. Most people will draw the characters first and then think about coloring them and how they'll be cohesive. But you start a little different where you blob in the colors almost if like you're painting the whole cover from scratch.
I'm told this is more like a painter. I probably should have learned how to paint when I was a kid.
Right.
But painting when I was a kid was you have to paint branches and shit, and I wanted to paint Ninja Turtles. Even though the Ninja Turtles were painted on the covers, I was told by my art teachers that is retarded, quote unquote. I remember that, and that will not fucking happen in her classroom. So I gave up painting, but I just backwards way through it, right? The upside too is video game characters have lots of details, folks, more so than, and every year it seems to be more details, you know?
Right.
And I don't know of another way to draw as many of the details as I need to without this. Like this was just a way of being able to blob a little piece of armor on top of a hand, on top of an armor piece, on top of another piece, which goes into, it's the only way I've been able to work it out. I couldn't imagine just trying to sketch it all and erase and sketch and erase. I'd be there, I don't know. It'd never get done. And so then I end up with all the basic characters colored in. I take the background, flatten it, take these characters, select them so they're one piece, copy the background colors, put that over the characters, set it to an overlay layer, and turn down the opacity. So they are tinted to the background. And then I add these glows and these extra effects on top of these color flats. And this is what I send off to get approved. So I get an initial coloration approval. I get it, and then I get the color roughie. This is just my roughie. This is before we haven't even started drawing yet. You know, I try to get this down, you know, and hopefully they understand the process. And again, I keep sending I always have an example of the last thing I did. Here's the last cover I did. Here's the process. So Gameinformer was totally. They were very hands off, man. Like he was like looking cool.
That's nice.
Yeah, they were like.
Which is rare.
They might have just been under the gun. Like, there's not a lot of time to fuss, right? But at the same time, they really loved the layup piece and all of the stuff I was doing. So this was just right in the wheelhouse of what they were looking for, you know. You will note a couple things. One, I had intended Bloodborne dude to be way bigger here. That was something. Link is also full size there, and I had a few more controllers worked in, but you're going to see eventually compromises had to be made. This is my final roughy lines. These are the roughy lines. These are the basic lines that I then go over each one of these and sketch this shit out. Wish I had more steps on this. I actually had some steps up, but I had to take them down because that's a whole nother thing. But suffice to say, folks, you've seen plenty of my videos where I kind of take the roughy lines. I'm thinking now, Brandon, like when I draw a comic book, this is all the line art I'm ever going to do.
Right.
For the interiors. I'm coloring right from this. Covers need more, but interiors are quite good enough. You'll see some of the compromises I made. One, to fit in more games and more boxes, and to make some time changes. I made that Bloodborne guy a plushie. But that didn't really... I traded out that plushie by adding a few more Mass Effect plushies, so I got a few more of those characters in there. And I was able to work in some more games. I was also able to work in Nintendo 64 controller, Paper Mario. I worked in some of my own picks, like Dragon Force is back here, Tactics Ogres is back here, which wasn't on the list. And I let them know too, so they didn't think I'm just adding games. I was like, hey, so I added these games. Because while I was working on this, that X-Men dude hit, you know what I'm talking about? The guy who wrote in that, he like put in a bunch of secret shit in X-Men that's anti-Semitic. And I'm like, not to say this is the same thing, but if you put in a game that went on their list, maybe, I don't know, they might have been like, that's not on our list. But I let them know, and they seemed cool with it. So now I ran into a problem here. It's how do I get this to really clean inks? I got two options. One, I print it out and ink it, which I've been doing recently on the Megavisions covers and the Final Fantasy VIIs. It's been working out. Or two, I go to digital inks. The problem is there's so much stuff here, and this is magazine dimensions. These are square. When I print this out at a little over 100%, it fits in 11 by 14. 11 by 17 is irrelevant because it's the same width. In comic books, the scaling from comic book cover to 11 by 17, so it's like 6 by 10 or 7 by 10 essentially, to 11 by 17 is about 150%, 160%, somewhere between there. To get the same scaling from this piece to a piece of paper, I would have had to print out an 11 by 17 horizontally twice for one page, and then two more for the other two pages. So it would have been 4 11 by 17s. I don't even have enough table space for that here.
Yeah.
I'd have to set up my old art table to make that happen, because that's what I had to used to do at Play before I learned how to draw digitally. That, and I didn't have the time. Like I mean, I was up to like 5 days at this point. I spent a lot of I spent half my time just getting this set up. And I'm like, I gotta still draw and color this fucking thing.
Yeah.
I remember talking to you, and you were like, did you think I could do it? Like, actually, Brandon?
Yeah. I knew it was going to come down to like the morning of. I was like, he's going to get it done, but it's going to be like, it's due at 8 a.m., 7:30, he's double checking shit, and we transferring it by 7:45. That's what I thought. I thought you would come down to like the fucking wire, because you'd either, one, just be putting more and more into it, or two, at the end you would be double checking your stuff a lot, because it's a one-time thing, more or less.
Couple other things I want to notice too. That's exactly what happened. Is with Alloy, she's like she's a tough character. She's pretty, but she's tough, and she kind of has a caveman bit to it, but not. I don't know. I really didn't want to make her super sexy. Some people have complained. I think it's at this point 80% people like it. 20% people are like, she looks fucking Cro-Magnon. I'm like, well, no, she doesn't. She's just not a super sexy version. I could have done that. I didn't go that way. So some people, I accepted that hit going into this one, So if you want to see some real hate, just go to NeoGaf sometimes. NeoGaf is, ever since I started working at Gamefan, I'm like, they're going to hate everything I do. Like, NeoGaf is just the most brutal. Luckily, I got some people in there like, I like it. I like the feel 90s. I look at everything. I see the comments, But the feedback has been 98% overall positive. and like 1 or 2% negative. So mission accomplished. So now I went and did the digital inks, and here's how we end up with the final piece. Now I should let me see if I can. Yeah. So I'll say this about this portion of it. What happened was I got the final inks done, and I don't have. These are my Overwatch things. Let me see if I can open up the final inks. Go to my Gameinformer. Anything you want to bring up while I'm doing this, Brandon?
I'm trying to think of a question I haven't asked you
Don't
many
ask
times
them.
on other streams.
Assume this is the first stream anyone's gonna.
Did you? Which was your favorite character to draw on the cover? Like,
I enjoy
one.
getting another crack at Chrono because I was able to give him. I'll show you. I was able to do something with Chrono that I hadn't had a chance to do on the last piece I did, but I gave him a French nose. If you ever notice like the French cartoons, sometimes they give them these little noses, like Joris from Wakfu. I gave him a little French nose.
I saw that, and I didn't want to ask because I didn't want it to seem like I was like, what the fuck? I just didn't. I'm not very good at always doing my questions properly to you, and it sometimes comes off real bad. But I did notice that, and I noticed that on one of the new the Overwatch piece that you did the nose like that.
I'm working a little every now and then. I'm working in a little French nose. I like it. I like the noses. Some people hate it, but I don't care. I like it. I also enjoy drawing the little Chrono plushies of the frog and that. But my ultimate favorite piece is not so much that I drew Mario; it's that I gave Mario holding the sword because he doesn't actually hold a sword in the game. It's just a character. He has a hammer. But when I was a kid, we used to make up our own Mario RPG. And it had like mushroom armor and shit like that. So I always wanted Mario to actually use a sword. I had one guy on Twitter complain, and I went, "It was my childhood dream to make him hold a sword." And then he was like, "God damn it," you know. And it was fun drawing some Warcraft. I'll say that. But other than that, so these are all the game boxes and everything. These are the final lines drawn in Photoshop. Crazy. I got a version I'm printing out and doing traditionally, so I can have my own traditional inks, you know. So but yeah. And this got done relatively quickly. Years of drawing digitally got this done fairly quickly, folks. I was rather shocked. Same here. I don't know what same here in response to. I like the way Yoshi came out. The shapes on Yoshi came out nice. So, but you can zoom in, and I do the diligence.
Right.
You know, they're all here, folks. The Game Boy, and they're not traced. I look at a Game Boy, but I make up my own shapes. You know, the covers are a little tricky. I used to physically draw them all by looking at a cover, but I found that one, you never hit it, and two, I don't have time. So what I've learned to do is take a cover that actually exists, layer it in into Photoshop, and then I still have to go and manually draw. So I physically go in with a 1 or 2 pixel brush and fucking draw these whole things, and also add here. I'll add size and scuff marks for everything, and it's just as tedious at the end of the day. You know, like what is that? What is this shit? You know, like what is? I don't know what that is. Remember, like look at the Star Wars one. This sucked because I've drawn this fucking cover before. It's always when I did the Star Wars piece, I've drawn this Knights of the Old Republic, and making your own Mario RPG. Thanks. And so, you know how many times I've drawn the Star Wars logo in the last 2 years? Like 60 fucking times on the Star Wars piece.
Yeah.
You know? But, you know, this is fun to do. And it really helps when it prints. It means it's super sharp. Without that, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And this right here, I can draw all my own stuff. So, and they add texturings. Each one of these, man, you got to plow through each fucking one. You know? I recommend give it a shot someday.
Pass. Hard pass.
See how much fun it is. So that's the lines. That's where the lines went. And then we get back to the final colors. And we're going to watch some of this in a minute. I'll say this, the color scheme. It just became after I sent away for the lines, they were cool with it. And then they just felt like the focus on the way I did the sunset on the initial just seemed like you would have looked more at the back cover than the front. I don't know if I agreed with that, but it doesn't matter what I agree with. it means it's a sticking point. And I don't like to sit there and explain to people why they should be enjoying the meal. You know, like you ever watch like MasterChef or Hell's Kitchen or some shit like that, or Kitchen Nightmares, and they're trying to explain why you should like it. It's like a joke. It's either funny or not funny. So if they're like, hey, we think this lighting scheme's a little, I don't know, it just wasn't working. So I knew what I tried to do was still have a sunset, so I had that feeling, but I tried to carry it throughout the piece, right? So it's going across. Ended up a little rainbowy, but given the fact that I have all these other colors, it worked. And I tried to keep it in gamut. Like these aren't super saturated reds. These aren't super saturated purples. Also, you'll notice this is a gap in the art right here. But I fill it with color to tie these pieces together. So you don't notice it, it becomes more solid. If I just made that red, it would look like you got cut off. So there's little things in color you can do to make things very secure and tie together. Like the blue in his armor is the same. The blue and the purple underlighting on Garrus's armor is the same as her wings, which are blue and purple. So it ties this sort of thing together. Creates these little pools here, you know. As best as one can. This is still like comic book art, you know. Coloring these coins was fun. I like the way Thrall came out back here. So now we're going to watch some of that coloring process. So, you know, this video is, again, it's going to cover the first half. We're not going to watch all of it. It's 3.5 hours long.
Oh, shit.
I'm going to skip through some of this stuff. But what I am going to do is upload the full 3.5 hour version into the YouTube, and it's going to have some music, so you'll be able to just turn it on and watch it. You can turn the music off or whatever, but you can leave it on while you work. So if you want to look at it, you'll see. So I started with cloud, and you can see here I'm coloring in the mask that I tend to set up. I got my little shade layers set up, and I'll make a specific video. I'm refining this process. It's funny, I started this with one setup, how I was doing the lighting, and by the end of it, I had another way I do it now. So the cloud is gonna not the most accurate way. It is and isn't. How I do now is how I do now. How I go about starting the colors now is very similar. See, I'm creating with the lasso tool. I'm drawing in the highlights, so the shade fills up all the characters 50%. I tint them to the background. That's that part where I said I flatten a copy of the background, cut out the characters with the outlines and set it to overlay and tint it, and then add a little bit of shade on them. But then what I'll do now is I'll make a selection, I'll knock it out. Now here, I'm making a selection and airbrushing out. I don't do that now. I do that secondary. The first pass, I just straight knock out, like cell shade. And I've just found that just becomes far quicker. But I worked that on this piece. Now, also when I'm drawing these selections, I'm also haloing around the edges. That creates that illusion of texture. You know, you can go around those little bits and create.
Right.
And I'm not writing the edge of the black. I'm actually a little on the inside. So there's a little bit of the bleed color underneath coming out. That's very intentional. I like that look. It's a classic look from the 90s. Some guys color that way better than others. Dave McKay, and, Nick Roush, Liquid. They did a lot of that. And this is all just airbrush and lasso tool, manually drawing these little lassos. And so what I'm doing is in the mask, I'm just knocking out from the 50% gray to white, so it's fully visible. Or in this way, it's actually black because none of the shade is visible. So it's painting sort of in reverse. I'm painting with the highlights versus the shade, and then I can go back and add shade to pop characters out. That's basically it.
The push and pull method. Where
I call it pushing and pulling. Yeah, where you're popping things forward by adding contrast.
And have you always done it that way when you're coloring covers and such and things like that, or is that more recent with things? Like it has always been a constant in your art where you push and pull things like that?
It's always been a concept. I just don't think I've successfully pulled it off until the GTA cover. And even that was a bit. And then look at the Final Fantasy VII. And then the Yakuza cover. And you know what I mean? Like, it's been getting better and better. So there, when you get a shade, I'm just filling it back in with either 50% gray or black. And you can see here, I have that 50% black. And what this means is that I'm just able to quickly work. I'm able to work faster because when I'm sampling a color, I'm just sampling the value. It's not like I'm gonna have to go here and color in with this color brown and that color yellow. You know, I'm just filling in using the masks. And the black gives me that purpley color because I set it all up in here. So I'll let it go a little bit more on cloud, then we'll jump around a little bit.
Coloring it this way, how, does it save you a lot more time compared to the ways
It
you
just
used
gives
to
my
it?
character a three-dimensionalness that I like, and it looks like the 90s stuff. You know, I like that. I've always said I'm trying to recreate the PlayStation magazine covers by myself. You know, and I successfully was able to do that here on like the only gaming magazine left in America, really. You know, like the largest, right?
Hmm.
So if this is all I get, mission accomplished. You know, like that was always the plan. I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing,
Right.
but it's fun in that it's a little bit more drawing than coloring, right? I'm not over here trying to make crazy brushes blend things together. I'm like drawing in the highlights. I just think about where the light would be hitting the surface. So now right there, instead of airbrushing that, I would have just made it a solid and then gone back in and adjusted. So I've you know, I've worked on it. Let's see if I can jump ahead a little bit too. These are little, see like these little earthbound characters, a little easier to see kind
Hmm.
of that process. Draw, 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 airbrush, airbrush, airbrush. Nope. Fix it, fix it, fix it. Gotta be careful. You can have these little halos sometimes. They don't completely seal up. But that's much easier than sitting there with the brush trying to manually
I just
fill it
noticed
in.
you even put the PlayStation logo on the bottom of his shoes.
Yeah, I worked in the place. You see?
Yeah.
Even you didn't
Little
see that.
little things that are always fun to catch from an artist that you don't normally see.
And I struggled with that. Do I put the PlayStation logo or do I put my signature right there? But I thought it'd be great to have the PS logo on his boots. So fuck Rob's ego, right? I'll just put that. So see there, I'm just filling in now. And that's just out of like speed, like. And at some point, I move from that little trick to. Let me kind of go back to the highlights. So watch me add shadow on his glove or whatever. Let's see, where's it? Oh no! I gotta jump forward. Can't keep going back. Let's see. So here's the second step of lights. So this is what I call bounce light. So all the basic lighting is done using overlay or highlight layers here. And then when I want to add in some stepped color, these little steps, I call this bounce lights based off this light source here. And these are solid colors that I'm masking in. A green, a yellow, and all these colors are in gamut. And these are done with using solid layer attributes, fill in the solid color. So I'm able to take this step and airbrush in these colors and get that stepped look. And if you really like, my rendering technique for that is really just go look at the way the colors were rendered on the covers to like the first couple Battle Chasers.
Hmm.
There was a real stepped look to it that kind of went away around the fourth or fifth issue. Not so much their color choices, but that stepped look is one I've always liked. And so see how I step that in,
Hmm.
and I have to manually draw that step. It's right there. I'm like carving out some of the lines, so they should be under the lines. So sometimes if I want the bounce light under the lines, I'll just deselect. But I generally have them
Okay.
over the line, so it pushes lines back. This is a complicated piece I need to make an entire video on. Just take my word for it. If you're new, you're
Right.
like, I don't understand what you're doing. But if I don't know, I want to move on from that conversation. It's a little complicated.
I would say you're basically cutting out pieces to color. That's what.
So if I want to push the line art back, I paint over the lines. If I want to cut them, see, I just cut that out. Just cut
Yeah.
out the line. So the seams are there. And this green, see how it's super bright, but it's halfway here? It's just because when I airbrush in, I'm airbrushing in lightly once, and then I draw a halo and I go over it again, but it's the same color. This green, this half green is the same green. It's just using less pressure. There aren't 7 different greens here. So I airbrush a little blue, and then I contract it manually. I have to draw on a smaller version. Now, mechanical pieces, I'll actually use Photoshop's contract button because it works better on like things that are mechanically drawn or created, that are metal weapons. But organics, I just manually draw that stuff in. I don't see myself changing this process much, Brandon. Like, let me see if I can jump ahead to Chrono a little bit. Let's get some Chrono. See if I can jump. Oh, Chrono's way at the end, but let me jump ahead to, let's just pick here. I'll get to Gwendolyn. Let's go back to Gwendolyn. So, where am I working? Oh, this is me working in the background. Like I'm adding in this glow here. Now, these colors are out of gamut. I knew that, but I liked looking at it out of gamut because it looked all pretty.
For those that don't know, what does that mean?
Gamut means that when this print is going to be gray, it means it's non-printable colors. There's a gamut range on a printer, and these teals are not printable. They only look that good on your skin. On your skin. They only look good on your screen. So when you see that flip between a grayer looking version, that's just me hitting Control Y to see CMYK to preview in CMYK. So the teals and some of the purples are out of gamut, but mostly the teals. Final cover looks fine. It's just one of those things where it's like, but look at the glows.
People do love the glows. I mean, all in all, to get this done in like 9 days is pretty crazy.
Yes. I'm not even going to sit here and lie. Yes, it is. It is pretty crazy. And, then you could say, well, it's unfair when some people complain, oh, this fucking art sucks. And I'm like, well, I don't care. You guys try it. You know what I mean? Like, go have fun figuring it out. It's so many years. It's almost 10 years of doing this just to get to the point where I can, And with the power prints, I've continually upped, not so much the detail quotient, but just, the same process, the same level of rendering, trying to improve the efficiencies every time. I used to be accused in the art department of the guy who thought too much about how I did work, but I don't know, Brandon. Who's got the cover? Who doesn't? And I didn't just get it. I fucking made it happen the way I wanted it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That's what I'm more happy with, that I was able to do the thing that I wanted to do. And overall, it's well liked. So, and it wasn't on accident. Like I wasn't over here manipulating layers. See, that's a bounce light. I'm looking at this purple that's on her wings and just trying to add a little bounce off there. See? It's just that over and over again, folks. And if that looks like it might drive you crazy, find something else to do. See, look at that. 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Also, you should know the lasso is unaliased. So it's not smooth. It's jagged. It comes out better. No vectors were used in the creation of this image. Where are we at? 40 minutes. All right, we got about another 10 and I'll wrap this up. Anything here you got to ask, Brandon? Or anything here you?
I'm trying. I'm trying to think of something maybe I don't understand or don't like. When you get to this far in the cover, right, and you see something maybe you don't like or that's out of place, how much time will you spend fixing it, or will you just kind
I
of?
allow myself to go back when I'm done. I always say if there's something that's bugging me, I can fix it at the end. And then at the end, if
Uh-huh.
I can't remember what the fuck that was, I never let myself write it down. I just say, if okay, at the end I can go fix it. But if I can't remember what it is at the end of the piece, then obviously it did need to be fixed.
Right.
And if I can still see it clear as day at the end of the piece, then I go fix it. You know, but I don't get hung up trying to manipulate one perfect thing when there's 7 million other fucking things to do. That
Right.
maybe once they're all together, you don't really notice. You know? So let me jump ahead a little bit. Still working on. Oh yeah, the slime. This is my favorite. I almost made this Cacho, but I was like, I'll just make it a Dragon Quest slime. Then she needs those little backlights. Uncertain. Also, I don't know. I made Gwendolyn a little bit more fierce than she is. She generally has this dainty pink lipstick thing going on.
Uh-huh.
So, a Chrono. Let me. The Chrono I want to watch a little bit of because that's where on the Chronos where I started figuring doing. Let me just write. Okay, so I see it's going to go from her to him, right? One more time. One more time. One more time. There we go. I'll just start here. So you can see I'm just filling in, dragging, solid fill, dragging, solid fill, dragging, solid knockout, really. Solid knockout, solid knockout, solid knockout, solid knockout. And this right here is just because the light would be hitting this way. Solid knockout. This is actually how I do it now. It's Chronos where I've figured out how to simplify this process, and I know it still looks good without over airbrushing.
Uh-huh.
Solid knockout. Solid knockout. I did from Chrono all the way through the remaining of the piece in one straight shot, basically. It's pretty crazy. It took me all day to kind of color a bit of Cloud and Gwendolyn and some of the stuff in the front, and then I went to sleep and then got up and did the rest in one straight shot until it was done that morning. Sent it right over, and then I stayed up until I knew they had it. See, I know the light's going to hit him here, so I'm dragging these halos. Solid knockout. It's going this way. And I'm just thinking about the surfaces three-dimensionally. And then I'm filling in. See, I halo this 50% area. I halo in and add the black. Solid. Black. Solid. But it's not adding black, it's adding color. The black is, when it's filling in the shade. And it has that little media stepped color to it. Already looks a little bit more three-dimensional, right? Fill, 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 fill. And I got the soundtrack to Haiku playing, season 2.
Uh-huh.
So, or Sword Art Online. Do 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 do
So you're all pumped up.
do 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 do. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome, dude.
Coffee and anime soundtracks to get Rob through all this.
Well, coffee chills me out, actually.
Does it?
Yeah, I can go right to sleep on an espresso.
Jeez.
I use it to think. See, and then now, yeah, that pink is the shadow because I have these skin layers that set up anything with the skin. It's masked in. So when I go to skins, I don't get purples. I get that pinkish purple. So they look alive. See that? Fill in. Fill in. Halo. These are all solid fills. There's no airbrushing at this point. Just drawing, fill, drawing, fill. Oh, it's so much faster.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna save you a lot more time moving forward.
You see how quickly, and it works, right? Like,
Right.
yeah. And then I just airbrush in the bounce light. That's where I say the airbrush for. So now I have to go and trap. I select him over her, but then I go and intersect to his silhouette that I've trapped out on the selection flats, and then fill that in. Fill in the shadow. Fill in the shadow. And the shadows in color, the only real shadows that are solid black are when I ink them in, or I might
Uh-huh.
airbrush a little around a shadow area to pop something out. But I'm not painting in tons of blacks. All right, we got about 3 more minutes of this, but we'll wrap it up. See if I can, how quickly I can get to the bounce. See if we can get to the bounce lights. The bounce lights. Yeah. Okay. So I want to show that right there. So let's get to the hair. So here I'm selecting this, the hair, and then I'm going to go up here to some orange and manually airbrush in a little bit of orange, and then I'll contract that, and then in the yellow, airbrush in the highlight. I manually drew it because mechanically it doesn't work. And then there, it's airbrush right down the center, so the sides end up fading out right in the center. And I jump between an overlay or a solid yellow, same color, but depends on how I want the saturations to look. And that's me just checking that the steps are working. Draw, airbrush, draw, halo, draw, little tiny extra details, little tiny extra. And now I'm going to add a little bounce light in the shade. So it's a little lighter in the shade. It's not a little darker. Oh, look at that. A little bit of that blue up in there. A little bit of light in the shade.
To come off the blue
Yeah.
above him in the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clever, Rob.
Oh, shit, son. Look at that. And then I go all just the dark areas now. And I just add a little bit of that bounce light into the dark areas. And then I draw inside the dark areas, and then a little bit of that bounce light. And then this time it's bouncing off his shirt, so it's a little more of the blue. So simple.
If you had to give yourself a score from 0 to 100, 100 being the best, what would you give yourself on this cover?
As an artist or as myself? Like, as an artist looking at another artist's piece of work, I'd give it a solid 95.
Okay, and as yourself?
It has to be. I give it, as an artist, I give it probably closer to an 85 to a 90. As myself, it'd be 100. You know?
All right.
There are things I could have done in the rendering that, specifically on some of the faces, like on Alloy, I would have gone in, maybe I would have, figured a few things out that could have been more of a happy medium in terms of, toughness to cuteness factor. But sometimes, man, that comes from just being able to draw a character once or twice, Like, this is the second time I've drawn Chrono. He's not drawn or colored the same way I did the last time, So the next time I get to draw Alloy, and I know that opportunity will come at some point, because I'll make one for myself. I'll do a Horizon Zero Dawn print if I have to. I'll have another pass at it, But I mean, I have to give myself 100 because I fucking did the level of detail I wanted to do. I worked in 60 games are represented on this cover, and I got turned the fucking thing on time, and it printed great. I did all my own sep, color sep, design, reference. I mean, to shit on it on any level, look, I mean, there's always room to improve, but given the fucking situation at hand and given the response, then yeah, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. I definitely give myself a 50 for not being able to record the whole fucking whatever happened to that second file. I don't know. That annoys the shit out of me. But I mean, look, he's three-dimensional. He's just animated, right? This is what I've been wanting to do. I like this stepped look. If you go look at the way that Steve Olaf did his rendering on the first few issues of Spawn, first 8 or 10 issues, you go look at even Haberlin's work, the way the stepped colors look on Battle Chasers cover 1. Not so much the color choices, like with the neon color so much, but I like a little bit more of the pastels. But, I mean, shit, dude, I could not have done this. If this cover ended up on my doorstep last September, last November, last December, before Christmas, it would not look like this. It would not. I mean, that is how much things have changed. Remember I told you I was like, I figured it out. I figured out how to do the thing I wanted to do. And so I'm showing you this, not so you guys can replicate what I do, but if you know there's something you want to do and you got to just keep working towards edging out at it piece by piece, you know? But if you are looking to draw with the lasso tool, you want to give it a shot, here's exactly how I do it, you know? And I'm going to be doing this on every piece moving forward. So like when I work on Final Fantasy IX, you want to see me continue this process forward. This is here forever. I don't think it needs to get much. You're not going to see me now. I'm going to do this fucking with this tool. No, I'm just going to.
Right.
The backgrounds can use, you know, more concepty brushes, but I like this look. You know, it's classic comic book coloring, man. It's my era. You know, the '90s. So I'm happy. You know, I would have liked to put more in. That's no shit. I would have liked to have put more in, but what can you do? I mean, I
Right.
literally finished this fucking thing just minutes before it was due, you know?
Right.
So we can go right to the final. This is half of the cover. And then I think we should be able to jump right to the transition, right? So half the cover. And this is when I went and like made some breakfast and try to like regroup, take a deep breath, you know, and then not half-ass this end of it just because I need to get the other half done. That's
Right.
the thing you got to be careful about too. You know, when you're up on a big detail crunch, you know, like when you get towards the end, I mean, you got to make, there's always some little compromise here and there, but you can't, this can't be rendered like shit. Like I can't turn this in and be
Right.
like, you know what, good enough. And you got friends that would be like that, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
good enough, you know, and, you know, I'm like, good enough, I guess, but fulfill the promise first,
Right.
you know, and if you don't have the talent to fulfill the fucking promise, then you shouldn't have took the job. You know, and I've held out. Like I was telling my buddy, I didn't mention this. I have not submitted my art to people, to studios, ever until January when I sent some stuff over to IDW because I didn't feel I could, what do you call, I could replicate what I've been wanting to do consistently. This is the final piece.
Mhm.
So complete with bounce lights on Bowser. He has a bounce light in the shadows, everything, you know. And it's a fun piece, you know. It's fun. So I got a Game Boy and Earthbound and Secret of Mana characters on the front cover of the largest magazine left in America for games. You know, like not a lot of people are gonna get to do that. So,
Right.
and I got to draw Genos, and Mallow, and Mallow. So happy. Look how happy he is. Anything here you like the most, Brandon? Is there anything that you're like, yeah, that's
Mario.
you like the Mario?
I like the Mario with the sword just because it looks cool and all the coins going around him. So I'm a fan of that.
Giant chunky coins. That's it,
Yeah.
folks. Look, if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I will answer everything. More's coming up. This 3-hour video will be put up soon. I'm going to start uploading it tonight. We'll see how long that takes. So you'll be able to leave it on. It's going to have some music if you want to listen. If not, turn the music off. So just so you can follow on. Leave it on while you're coloring if you want to study how things were done. It was sped up 4 times. So this right here was the first 12 hours of effort, and this is the second 12 hours of effort. To render at this level with this much detail is about 12 hours a page, which is pretty good considering all this shit. Like this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, you know, 17, 18, 19, 20. That's just little figurines, not including game boxes. That's 20
Right.
things right there. So, yeah, no. And they all have things added to them. Oh, if you want to know too, folks, I'll show this one. We'll end on this Easter egg. No one's gonna get this, but I'm going to see if I can't grab the final piece so I can zoom in. I'll grab the final high res. We'll end on this. There is one Easter egg you're just not going to be able to see, but I'm going to share it here. As soon as Photoshop decides to. You know those hard drives, they got to spin up. Here we go. If you go on the Game Boy, zoom right in, That is Link's Awakening. That's Link and Marin right there, looking out at the sea. My favorite scene in any role-playing, action, role-playing, whatever, Zelda game ever. It's on the Game Boy. That's how much I care, folks. I care. So thanks for all the props, folks. You don't need to keep telling me we love it. I appreciate it. And we're going to move right along. We got other stuff to do. So is there anything else, Brandon? Anything you want to pimp? Anything you want to mention? Anything you want to say?
I've enjoyed looking at this art piece and eventually owning it when I see you, Rob.
Appreciate it, Brandon. All right, everybody. I'll be back soon. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Show is done.